Um, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'm going to introduce my co-hosts. If y'all have questions, we're not muting anybody right now. If y'all have questions, feel free to type them into the chat or raise a hand so we can get you like in order here. I am Haley Gray. I'm the founder of the Women's Entrepreneur Network, which is about 75,000 members. I grew the group organically without the means of paid ads, although I do a lot of paid ads. I am a software engineer by training and with an MBA from Duke with a concentration in entrepreneurship and innovation. I have about 10 years of specifically working with small businesses, but I've been working in websites, since Mosaic. So since HTTP and HTML became a thing. Whoa! And yes, I have worked on tape drives and reels and all of the things.
Tape drive.
My first job as an intern in college was working for IBM, manning a data center and feeding tapes to a mainframe. So I've done like all kinds of crazy coding, and I'm a big believer in the entire system working together. I've done extensive amounts of customer support over the years and debugging things. So I come to marketing with a very much a customer support, maintainability, debugging mindset as part of why I'm here. And thank you. Mike was asking me if I would have ears today, so I aim to please. I have a few more on order. So
yeah, we got on. He had no ears on, and I said, "Haley, come on, you have no ears."
Yeah,
it's her thing. You got to do your thing.
I do. So I do a lot of fixing of broken marketing and making things better. So that is what I do. And I love playing with viral social media stuff. If some of y'all have seen some of my obnoxious messages in the last couple of weeks, as I've hit 12 million views on my personal profile since I've been playing with it.
Amazing.
It's been fun. And I will go ahead and turn the stage over to Mike, and then we'll go with Erin and then Pam.
All right.
Mike, who are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you? I'm going to try to keep my little introduction just a little bit shorter. I do operations consulting for marketing agencies and other businesses with small teams. That's it.
There you go. Workflows.
Keep it simple. Yeah, winning workflows is what I call it.
Welcome, Erin.
Well, hey, I'm Erin Pennings. I am a copywriter and brand messaging strategist, and my business is called Copy Snacks. There's a really fun story there that we can talk about another time. Ultimately, what I do is I help businesses figure out their story, nail it, tell it with an angle that actually matters to their audience, and then distribute it across their website, copy across their social media, across their funnels and their thought leadership. There's a lot of marketing consulting that goes on. There's a lot of I call it marketing therapy that goes on, because yes, you can claim all the things that you're truly an expert in. So we'll be talking about all kinds of things. I know Mike and I have talked about the commonalities of core values in operations and in marketing as well. So
that's right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna end my short intro there and kick things over to Pam.
Hey everybody, what am I? I'm a coach that works with entrepreneurs to maximize their time, income, impact, and joy. In a nutshell, when you work with me, I help you to get really clear on what you're doing so that you're working hopefully in your zone of genius, doing more of what lights you up and certainly what you do best. And then I help you apply my signature 8 method that basically tells you to focus on what you do best, automate, delegate, and eliminate the rest. And through the time that I've worked with my coaching clients, I've realized a few common threads of things that really help people to achieve their goals and the success that they want. One is networking and the other is action. So I created a virtual coffee chat club to help people connect with other like-minded professionals from around the world. Because I think that we're always stronger when we have people that we know to pull on when we are hiring or referring, or sometimes just for a fun chat. So that's been a lot of fun. And then we also have a virtual co-working community where you come to take action and just get the things done, because it's great to have a lot of ideas. Erin actually coined me as the queen of ideas a bunch of years ago, and I love it because it's how my brain works. I have tons of them. Strategy is my thing, but if you don't take action to get it done, it really doesn't matter. So that's a little bit about me, and I really thank you all for coming to join us today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to answering all of your questions about all of the things.
Ooh.
Oh, so there was a question about Annie's avatar. So there is a way to do avatar. If you go down to your video settings, it's under your video settings, and you can actually change your video settings. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but you can put on makeup, you can change your avatar, you can be anything you want to be. You can be a cat, a dog, a raccoon, a squirrel, you name it, you can be. There's lots of fun things that you can absolutely do with your avatars here in LinkedIn. And you can also put on makeup if you're not wearing makeup. You can have it automatically applied to your face, which I always find
The trick with
particularly
that is
funny.
though, like it can cover up your hand. If you put your hand in front of your face, your lips show up and everyone knows.
We might have to play with that later.
Yeah, you can have eyebrows and all kinds of things.
Because we all
Mustache,
need
a beard.
things to procrastinate with.
Yeah, so cool. So one of the things I would love to talk about, and I think that this impacts my area of expertise, but it also affects Mike and Erin, a little bit less Pam. But one of things I'm seeing a lot of is people really, really struggling with getting clients into their net, right? And I'm seeing a lot of funnels that you maybe would have converted a year or two ago, or 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not trying to pick on somebody today, but I'm kind of thinking of somebody in particular. But I've seen this happen a number of times recently. You know, people are putting up what they thought would have worked a couple of years ago, and it's not working now as far as funnels go. And that can break a lot of things in your business. So, you know, when you guys think of funnels, I'm kind of curious for the peanut gallery for everybody. What do you think of when I say a funnel? Because there's some really sophisticated funnels I've seen out there, and some really like not sophisticated funnels I've seen out there. Mike, do you have thoughts on how funnels can actually impact your operations?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've actually never thought about that before. How funnels can impact your operations? Well, I mean, you know, a funnel is essentially a process, right? And it's a process of bringing people into your business, bringing leads into your business, making a sale, depending on what kind of funnel you're talking about. And so funnels are going to bring clients in, and they're also going to set the pace for how you track them, how you work with them. It's going to set the pace for who you're bringing in, which is going to have a tremendous impact. Exactly how you create the funnel is going to determine who, you know, passes through all the parts of it. So I don't know. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if I got to what you're
and
asking.
it's the kind of the end-to-end sales process, right? And the end-to-end, like, I think a lot of times people mistake a sales funnel as, okay, it's just my point of onboarding a client, but your sales funnel can be the entire end-to-end life cycle of the client. So if you think about where your business is touching the client in every single touch point along the way. It's not just about, to me, automation. There can be a ton of automation in there, but there can also be a lot of things that break along there operationally, like, hey, I forgot to follow up with that lead because that's not part of my process, right? Somebody booked. So a very common thing I see, like a failure with a sales funnel, is somebody booked a call with me and I got on a call with them. And then, we had a great call and then nothing. And that's both a marketing and an operational failure, because
Absolutely.
nothing.
Follow
And a
up is
productivity issue.
Something that a lot of people will go, oh yeah, if I follow up once or twice, and then if nothing happens, I let them disappear, which sad trombone, 100% Lindsay, I think it happens.
Very sad trombone, right?
It's the thing that I think people think about with funnels, and especially if I think of a few of the programs that like are kind of quick to jump in and you can easily like build something because it's somewhat user friendly if you have any tech backgrounds. But what people neglect to realize, even if they can do that, is the before and the after. I think it's what you're referring to, Haley, because if you don't follow up and follow up multiple times over time, you're leaving so much money on the table. Because some people, it's like planting a seed. I talk about this all the time. Some people aren't ready for you when you first meet, but are 6 months, a year, 2 years later. And if you nurture that relationship, they have in the back of their mind, oh, I really want to hire Haley. I love what she's doing. I just am not ready yet. And if you keep following up and checking in, eventually the yes is going to come. And even for the people that are ready, sometimes, if you think about like text messaging, like some of us reply right away. Others, like, we forget that we think we reply in our head and like forget later. Sales conversations are a lot like that. Sometimes you're thinking, oh, I want to do this, but then something else consumes your attention, or somebody else swoops in and sells you something else and takes that money off the table. But if you follow up with people and they genuinely know and get to know you, like you, and want what you're offering them, you're going to eventually get yes. But so often they just think, oh, it's easy come, easy go, the conversation. And without that follow-up, it's gone. It's over.
Yeah. The other thing that I think of, when people ask me about funnels, I'm always like, well, it's basically the automated process of getting people into your business, of getting clients into your business. And there's usually some kind of automation, but it can be really simple. But I think the biggest thing that happens from my perspective, outside of the mechanics of like forgetting to follow up or some of these pieces, is really it's twofold. One is, are you communicating in a way that dovetails with your operations? Are you promising something that actually backs up to what you're going to deliver down the road? Because if there's a marketing and operations disconnect, then you're going to have a disconnected customer experience.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be like this groundbreaking messaging. It just really means getting sales, marketing, and operations all in alignment. And when you have a big team, that's more involved sometimes than if you are the sales, you are the marketing, you are the operations, you are the bookkeeper. But it's almost harder sometimes when it's all you, because you have to put on all these different hats and see things from the mile high perspective. So that's when it's really helpful to get someone else to come in and be like, tell us about this thing that you're doing. What does this really look like? But so the other thing that I think happens a lot of the time is you don't realize if the step breaks if it's automated. So how do you know if it breaks? What's going to happen? Like when you realize, gosh, my leads have slowed down, or my coffee chats or my consults have slowed down. Oops, they're booking them, but it's not coming in, or they're sending messages in, but they're not actually landing. So there's
no
a follow-up.
So one of the things that I always suggest with almost any process, and maybe Mike, you have more to chime in on this because this is certainly your area. I always think about putting certain things on my calendar as a quarterly check-in. So like a quarterly opportunity where I block time to do more follow-up. So if I try to do them more often, but I have set times chunked out in larger quantities once a quarter to circle back to follow up with sales conversations and prospects. I also do the same thing for systems like you're referring to. So I don't do it for every little thing, and I need to add some of the little things to it because I have found some recent little things that are broken because we forget about those. But for the big operational things that I'm doing, I like to go back and look at soup to nuts. I go into my different automated funnels and do a test and see what's happening and read the emails and read the texts, because we often update something in one place and forget it's in somewhere else. So that quarterly check-in doesn't let too much time go by so that you end up finding like a huge broken system, because that's overwhelming too. And if you wait too long, all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is like 5 years antiquated. And now you like, it makes you almost stop in your tracks in your business to fix it. And it becomes so broken that sometimes that's one of the reasons people will kind of walk away even from what they're doing in their business, because it just takes all the time they have, especially for people starting out.
Yeah.
So true. It makes me think, a lot of times, especially if we're just DMing people and things, it's easy to lose track. It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget, hey, I promised to follow up a week from now or 2 weeks from now. Just tracking that stuff, or even something as simple as, you tell somebody, okay, I'll follow up with you in a week. Set yourself a calendar event a week from now so that it pops up on your phone and you go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to follow up with them. Just keeping track of that stuff goes such a long way, because it's so easy. If you trust your memory, it's so easy for things to slip through the cracks and to get overlooked. And it's so important to have a step-by-step process for things, especially as you get into bigger numbers. Right, Haley?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we've had frequent conversations about that. I did a summit and a challenge and a couple of workshops back to back. And, interest of disclosure, I generated over 350 leads organically. And, that's always been my problem. I can generate 300 to 500 leads organically a month without trying. And y'all are looking at me and rolling your eyes going, yeah, you poor little thing, right? But oh my gosh, the tracking. And the problem has been up until now, and we're actually working on addressing that, that, they're all over the place. They're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're here, they're there, they're young, they're woozy-watsies. And knowing who's where and who's what and how any of it works is really hard to track. So, one of the things that I'm working on actively in my own business, it's not even like any really fancy sales automation. It's like tracking people. Who is this person? When did I talk to them last? Because I can only keep so many things in my head at a time, and I can only remember so many people at a time. So I have to take notes of, who did I talk to? When did I talk to them? How did I talk to them? And that's before we even talk about cool, interesting, innovative sales funnels. How did I talk to you? When did we talk to you? What did we talk about? When do I follow up with you next? And how do I stay on top of it so that I can keep inviting you to the next thing that I'm doing in my community or anything?
Well, and speaking to what you're saying, Haley, so Haley gave me advice on how to do some stuff, in the marketing world, and I took it. And then I had the same problem one night recently, and I woke up to like 200 leads literally overnight. And I like was laughing out loud because Haley was telling me stories like this. And I'm like, okay, now I see how you do it. And I don't have nearly the reach, of course, that like Haley has with her profile, but I listened to her. So like plug for Haley, but she seriously like this happens all the time for her. And so then I saw that problem myself. And the one thing that I learned through having that problem, and we're again working on ways to nurture people, follow them, all the things. It's actually the importance of the little things. Like we get, I think, sucked into like the shiny objects of new technology or new strategies or ways of doing things. But really, with so many people in business, if you can conquer this problem of how to track people, how to nurture relationships, how to follow up with them, how to be consistent in knowing how you're doing these things so that when, like you're alluding to, Haley, you have a new offer, a new program, or a new challenge that you want to invite certain people to because maybe something previously wasn't a good fit, but this is, and you actually know who those people are, it can make all the difference. And it can leverage those 300 or 400 leads that you're getting a month pretty fast into paying clients who want to work with you in different ways. And it's exciting, but it all comes down to like the little actions and the little things that we have to consistently do. Because if you drop off it, then you might do it for 3 or 4 days, and then a month or two goes by and all that work is gone, because it's about the momentum that builds and taking the consistent action.
And to that
Yeah.
point, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple. It can be sticky notes all over your monitor if that's how you work, which I no longer have, thank you. But oh yeah, Pam. But one of the tricks that I've found to kind of keep me focused, especially if it's time-based, time-driven, is I will either schedule emails in my inbox so that they only send out when I want them to pop to the top. And they're emails to myself generally. It's like a reminder, hey, do this. And that way it doesn't like slowly make its way down to 500 emails at the bottom. And it can come on. But if you use Gmail, I don't know how many of you, probably many of you do, there's a snooze function as well. So you can snooze the email until it's time to actually follow up. Like if you, particularly in the sales process, I have a bunch of canned emails that I can use to tailor and customize, so I'm not having to remember what to write up by scratch. But then I will be like, oh, follow up with this person. The 4th of July is not a good week to follow up with people because it's chaotic. Many people are off. It's in the middle of the week. Pop it into Monday. And yeah, Pam posted in the chat. Please feel free to pop comments in.
Yeah.
We want to answer your questions if you.
And we can do those follow-up emails, canned emails like that, schedule them in Dubsado actually as a workflow
Yeah.
to go out.
And something I think that's really helpful when you're talking about lead and sales follow-ups, sit down and like make a list as they come with other people of the questions that come your way and how you respond, so that you have something and you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, especially as larger numbers come. Not to say everything should be copy and pasted, but if everybody's asking you the same 3 to 5 questions, generally, if you have those answers ready to go, you can copy and modify, save yourself loads of time. Be careful not to get in Facebook jail when you're on Facebook, because I did that recently, because you can do it much faster. But you can streamline things for yourself so you're not redoing the same things all the time. And while it's still not be completely automated, it's not totally manual either.
Yeah, I use Ontraport and Dubsado. The problem I have right now in my business with the disconnect is connecting Facebook itself and the messages I'm having in Facebook itself back to another CRM, right? Without having to manually copy and then set up reminders on a third-party system. So we're in the process of looking at a couple of different pieces of automation through Streak and Group Track and some other stuff. I'll let y'all know what we end up deciding on. But we're kind of in that discovery process right now, but it's definitely a thing. And then the tracking on Facebook is different than the tracking on LinkedIn. Team post-it notes. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to point out that you don't necessarily have to have a fancy CRM system to track your leads. Just tracking a spreadsheet. Simple columns, right? Name, last time you talked to them, maybe some kind of rating scale about how good you're feeling about whether or not they're going to purchase anytime soon. Just something simple like that. You'd be shocked at how big a difference that makes. Shocked.
The other thing
I put in the chat, if you've used a method like that before, put it in the chat. Let us know what you've used before in the chat. Sorry, Pamela, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry. The thing that I also really like is I use Mac products. So on notes, one of the things I've done before is I'll create a new note for each person I meet. Now, this doesn't always work like when you get large numbers, but when I get into conversations with people, that's typically when I take it to the note and they have their own name. And I just keep a running list of conversations of date and all of that. So I can just flick down that tab and I'll have on their LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever I've talked to that person. And it really helps keep tabs of where that conversation has evolved.
I love using the notes app for taking notes during calls with people. So helpful.
And it travels with you, right, on different devices. So that's part of what
Yeah.
helps me, because sometimes I'm like on my phone or I'm on one of my laptop or my desktop. So I like that it's everywhere and it's easy and I don't have to like log into anything.
Right. And then you can
So-
consult your notes when you talk to, if they send you a DM or something, you can go, oh, you know what? We talked about that in our call, 3 months ago. So you go to your notes app, you search for their name, you find it and you review your notes and you go, oh yeah, they were a fit for this offer. I'm going to talk to them about that in the DMs. That kind of thing could be super helpful.
And then like you look like a rock star when you have something like, oh, they have a dog named like Candy or something. And you're like, oh, how's Candy? And you show that you actually cared, because even though you may not really have remembered it and you had it in your notes, it shows that like you took the time to make that note, and you're establishing a relationship. And I think that goes a really long way for some people when they're deciding between you and a competitor, because it looks like, and it certainly demonstrates that you care. And I think that makes a big difference for a lot of people.
Well,
Yeah.
and using that as a jumping off point, a lot of people come to me and they're like, well, how can I make sure that these are personality copy, or how can I make sure that it's fun? It doesn't have to be fun. It has to be you. So authentically connecting with people that's the jumping off point for anyone who's wondering which leaps my brain is making at any given time.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Haley.
No, I think that you're right. I mean, I think that it, I'm the only one sitting here with Yoda ears on. It has to be authentically you, regardless,
And it's
of what it
so
is.
easy to look at somebody else's success or apparent or seeming success, whether it truly is or isn't, and want to copy it and say, oh, I can do that. And the thing is it may or may not work for you, but even if it works for you, it may or may not bring you the impact and the joy and the total results that you want. So you're way better off taking the time to figure it out, what it means to you, whatever it is, whether it's your copy, your offer, how you serve your clients, how you deliver what you promise. Because when you do it in a way that truly comes from who you are as a person, that's the unique thing that sets you apart from others. And that's what's going to make you more successful and find the right fit clients, and less of the ones that become the headaches that we've all had before.
People can
There was
tell.
a
People can.
fun question earlier from Mike. People can definitely tell. He made a comment about, oh, should you follow my 1, 2, 3 system? What was the question that you put on your Facebook this morning? Follow my cookie cutter absolute system in your business, or should you do something more unique?
It's funny. I got people responding with the shocked face because they couldn't believe I said it. But here's what I said. I'm going to read it off of my phone. True or false? For best results, you need one size fits all cookie cutter solutions to oversimplified problems. The obvious answer was supposed to be false, but it's sometimes people assume that when I do those that I mean it's true. So that's why I got the shocked face.
I think what's interesting about that is sometimes the 1, 2, 3 solutions really do work for some people, but it's really hard to put yourself in a box that's made for someone else. And who wants to be in the box anyway? Like none of us got into business to fit into someone else's box. So
I think it becomes like when people are in that painful, urgent, I need to make money right now phase, that's when they buy those solutions sometimes, or it seems like it's that wave your magic wand and overnight everything's going to become a success if I do these 3 things. But rarely is it that simple. And like you said, Erin, it does work for a percentage of people, or they wouldn't have testimonials and be in business hypothetically, right? But what percentage of people is that? And where are you going to fall in it? And even if it works for you, is it going to be like the thing that lights you up, that helps you feel like accomplished, like you're doing what you're meant to do? Or is it going to be something that just feels like you're wearing somebody else's shoes that don't fit?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
one thing that I found is super true of every business is that every business is unique. Why? Because you, the business owner, are completely unique. What you're doing is completely unique to you, and who you're serving is a unique audience. Nobody has the exact same audience. Nobody is the exact same people. Nobody does things in the exact same way. So what's going to work for your business is unique to you. So those cookie cutter solutions, they may kind of help you figure things out a little bit. They may give you a starting point, but you know, at the end of the day, you've got to do what's going to work for you in your unique situation. Super important.
Well, also, like when I think about a lot of my clients, most of them that I've worked with for long periods of time are doing something in the entrepreneur space because they don't want to follow other people's rules. So it always makes me laugh and chuckle when all of a sudden they want someone else's like secret formula because, you know, they didn't want that corporate job anymore or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, just tell me what to do. But really that's not always the best course of things to go.
Yeah.
I can pop in and say one more thing about that, and then we can grab Isaiah's question. That would be awesome. And I think, oh shoot, now I'm going to lose track of what I was thinking because I'm looking at squirrel. This happens more and more every year. I think, but to the point there of, you said something, Mike, about where everything that you've done has given you the expertise to do this. And I'm going to misquote you and butcher the quote on that. But I think that's a really important piece to bring into this is that people, you want someone else's secret sauce. People probably want your secret sauce. And if you're like, well, I don't have a secret sauce, the truth is like completely different because everything that you've done up until this point has led to your secret sauce. The mechanics for what any of us do just about can be looked up on YouTube. You can do all the things to find out, okay, how do you write a sales page? What's this? And you can find out all kinds of different formulas, all kinds of different structures, all kinds of best practices. So what you bring isn't how you do each one of those individual pieces, or isn't specifically what those individual pieces are. It's your brain. It's all of the experiences and perspectives that have brought you to this point that you apply to those mechanics that make you stand out. So I think to the point of authenticity, that's really one of the places where you can let that authenticity shine, is because you can say, in my experience, and be speaking to this, even if your experience is like 14 different things that you've taken bits and pieces of to bring this to your business.
It's so true, Erin. And I have to just say one more thing before we move on. You know, I find that so many people don't realize what makes them special because it comes so easy to them. Like when you're doing the thing you were meant to do, whatever that thing is, you don't realize it's hard for other people. And I always use a personal example when I talk about this because it's more relatable. But like, I love to cook. I hate to clean. My mom loves to clean. You can lick her floors. Like you would not want to lick mine unless she did it over. Despite my best efforts, she can clean my kitchen in like 5 minutes. It might take me 5 hours because my brain doesn't work that way. You know, I go down the rabbit hole and like end up in my like dining room doing something else because, you know, if you give a mouse a cookie, but for her, she can like focus, get it done, and she rocks it out. The same thing in business. So like when you're doing something that you're really meant to do, it's not always apparent. And you sometimes go down the path in your life that you're doing work because it was practical or whatever got you there. But when people kind of look at themselves and figure out what is your zone of genius, what do you really do best, what's going to make the most impact, that's where you find all those little nuggets of gold that you're talking about, Erin, that truly make you stand out from other people. And sometimes you're already standing out in that way you don't realize it. So I could talk about this for like hours, but we'll go on to the next question.
Isaiah asked a really good question. He said, I've been a funnel builder for a few years now, and I'm looking to start my own agency and help people with processes just like this. Have you seen interest in people needing help with creating the systems and the workflows instead of just creating the funnel pages, i.e. adding in automation, CRM, etc.? Oh yeah, very much so.
The answer is yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
People need lots and lots and lots of help. And a lot of times, for example, people will come to me and be like, I need website copy. And then I'll look back and I'll be like, all right, why? How are you planning to use this? What else do you need? What are the other systems that you're doing? How are you going to drive traffic once this website copy is here? What are you hoping they'll do with it? And so a lot of times I think the problem that people think they have isn't necessarily the problem that they have. So their perception is going to be a little bit different on what the problem is. But to that end, the problem that you think you've solved may not be the problem that you solve for them. So they'll be like, I just want to do this. Or in the case of brand messaging, people will be like, I have a disconnect between my sales. And it'll be like, let's talk about that. And it turns out that they've never done a brand messaging project. Everything is all over the place. And so what they talk about online, like on social media, is in one place. What they talk about in their website's a different place. When they actually get to speak in person, it's another place. So for the funnels piece, yes, people might come to you and they might say, hey, I need a sales page. But then when you probe and it's like, what else are we doing here? That's when you can really start to edge into the systems. And then once you have those testimonials and they're like, this is what he did for me, this is what all of these other pieces are coming together for, then you can really start to position yourself that way. And you can start positioning yourself that way now for sure. But speaking to some of those different problems, it's really interesting to see what people say.
Yeah. So Julia was asking the favorite productivity and automation tools and habits. Mike was saying Calendly and Google Calendar. Absolutely. I use Acuity in Google Calendar. Pam says the Zone community. I use Zapier Connect. God only knows what. So God only knows what. So when you talk about, automation, I can attach two gorillas and put on the duct tape and I can get them to talk to each other. And it's amazing.
For productivity, one of the things that I think is super important, and I talk about it a lot with my clients, is time management, prioritizing tasks, and then giving yourself a time limit on how long you should spend on that task, and then actually scheduling a block of time. That's why I said Google Calendar, is because I put everything on a calendar. I don't just, a lot of times we, in, let's say, a corporate environment, they're going to say, hey, Mike, here's this task I want you to do. When do you think you can get that done by? And I go, I have no idea. 2 weeks from now? It's a 1 hour task. Why are you saying 2 weeks from now? When are you going to spend that hour? When are you going to have that hour to spend? Put it on your calendar, mark it as busy. And then anybody who needs to make an appointment with you, whether it's sales calls or client calls, client meetings, whatever, or a call like this, it goes on the calendar, right? And if you sync your Google Calendar with Calendly, then whenever anybody needs to book an appointment with you, they go through Calendly, and that time is automatically blocked off. They can't book that time with you. So that time that you're going to spend on that task becomes sacred. It becomes non-negotiable. During this 1 hour, I'm going to work on this task, and I'm only giving myself an hour to do it. Because otherwise, a task can, like Pam was talking about a little bit ago, cleaning her kitchen, it could take 5 hours. Why? Because you've allowed it to, because you've given it, you haven't put any limit on it, right? If you only give yourself a certain time limit, then this is all I've got. I'm going to spend it. I'm going to be focused, and then I'm done. I'm walking away.
So you're spot on. And I'm going to take this to like the next few levels because
yes,
there's so much there. I've been talking a lot about, if you've been in the WEN group, about the 2-minute rule the last few days. It's one of the best productivity techniques, in my opinion, for people who like to get things done, but also maybe tend to procrastinate. 2-minute rule is, if there's something that's going to take you 2 minutes or less to do, when it presents itself to you, you do it right then. It could be responding to an email. It could be cleaning up your workspace. It could be anything. But if it takes 2 minutes or less, don't add it to your to-do list and don't delay, just do it. It's amazing how much you can clear when you kind of put that into your daily practice. The other thing I really like is the Pomodoro technique. When you really know you have a lot to get off your plate, it can be a lot of little things or a bigger task. But if you try Pomodoro, what it looks like is setting the intention of what you want to accomplish. You can use a timer for 25 minutes, immerse yourself in work. You got to get rid of all the distractions, extra tabs, other things, but immerse yourself in your work for 25 minutes. When that timer goes off, take a 5-minute break to stretch, refocus, grab a snack, whatever, and then come back to it again for another 25 minutes. You can do as many of these in sequence as you want, but it helps you to focus on what you want to get done, to your point, Mike. And then I also believe, like, time blocking, as you said, is key. And the one thing that's key that you said that I really have to reiterate is actually following through with the time you blocked and not just saying, oh, I needed this, I can use this hour for something else. And to answer your question, what is it for the Zone community? It's a virtual co-working space, and that's what we're all about blocking time to take action. So we're available 24/7 to come in and co-work, but we have hosted sessions that are blocked out for specific things. So Erin, for example, has an hour every Friday. You can come in and do copy talk and work on your copy for that hour and pick her brain if you have questions. And it's amazing what you can accomplish, because not only are you dedicating that hour to work on your copy, but you can also pick an expert's brain. And we have a bunch of stuff like that. I can talk to anybody else at a later time about it if you're interested, but the key is figuring out what works for you. And the reason I answered initially the Zone community is that for me, I like to be social and I like to be around people. So as much as all of these other strategies work, and there's somebody else in the room, even if it's virtually, it helps me get things done. My parents as a child used to laugh that I want them to sit next to me when I did my homework for no other reason. I just got it done. I have no idea why. But when I log into the Zone and I see friendly faces, I usually just pop in the chat what I'm working on. And next thing I know, like I get into a flow state. And as long as I can stay in there an hour or 2 hours, sometimes longer, I'm productive because it's like a light switch in my brain. So I really like the accountability partnerships that I found through this community that I created, and it was meant for other people, but it works for me.
I'm laughing because I used to make my mom sit in my room while I cleaned it because I can't focus on it while it's just me. But yeah, and I found the Zone really, really helpful as well, Pam.
Thanks.
I often show up with like this laundry list of things. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all of this. And even if I only get half or 2/3 of it done, it's still more productive than I would have been on my own.
Yep. And I get in there when I'm doing stuff, and I'll have my camera off and my mic off. So it's not talk to Haley time. It's go get work done time.
Yep. Because you're dedicating the time, to Mike's point, and that's the key. When you dedicate specific time to taking action and you consistently follow through, you're going to see results, whether you're in the Zone or you're on your own. It doesn't matter. You have to find what works for you, but the key is to consistently take action. And I can't say that enough. And if you do nothing else today, write on a post-it note, consistently take action, and you'll see better results.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. Now, and the thing that I find most interesting about business in general is that your marketing can be spot on. But if you can't handle the workflow, so you can hire somebody to do the marketing and the sales pieces for you, but if you can't do almost none of the other stuff matters. And you've got to have the operations and the productivity pieces to be super effective. I do not hear any yodeling children in your background, and I'm hoping you don't hear any yodeling dogs in my background. Right now, she's not yodeling, but sometimes she will.
That's a super important point, though, Haley. Not the yodeling, but
really,
but it happens so many times where, in fact, just like you mentioned earlier, you could get 300 leads in a month, but can you service them all? Can you work through them all? Can you talk to them all and reach out and touch them all? That becomes the really important point. And I think that's where, people often don't realize how important having step-by-step processes established in your business, or as I call them, winning workflows, how important it is to have those in place before you turn on really what ends up being too much marketing, too much lead generation. If you want to scale, you have to have a process in place. You have to be ready for it and prepared for it. And that means setting up processes and potentially delegating out certain tasks and having everything flow, being able to track it all. So important. If you're just a solopreneur, this is one of the reasons why I said earlier, if you're just tracking leads, just beginning with that simple piece, tracking leads, not a complex system at all, but just getting in the habit of beginning to track things, to track leads, to track customers, and eventually you move on to tracking projects and having multiple people participating in the same tracking system. getting into that mindset, even as a solopreneur, is super important because then, like Pam said, suddenly you have 200 leads to deal with. How are you going to deal with them? Oh, well, I'll just put them through my process. It'll take a while to work through them all, but I've got a process and I'm just going to move people through it.
So I have a question for you, Mike. What do you say to people? Like, it's interesting because I can see a couple different ways. I'd love your take. When people are setting up processes, I think it's a fine line between having a process and then having an overly complicated process of like, it's too simple, too complex. How do you suggest people approach that? Because that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen on every aspect. Like they either oversimplify it or overcomplicate it at the wrong point of their business. And that can not only be a waste of time, but also a lot of money.
One of the things that I do when I begin working with a client is I look at what they're doing right now. I don't try to like write a whole process from scratch. What are you doing right now? What are you already doing? How are you already doing it? Because chances are you already have a process, right? You just haven't really written it down. It's not necessarily standardized, but start small, start with the big things and gradually document more of that, right? Put it in SOPs. And think through like, how long is it taking? Where can this be streamlined? Is this step necessary? Thinking through what gets the best results. It's always got to be results driven, data driven, right? Like you said, it's not always a question of get it as simple as possible. Simplicity is good, right? But sometimes you need to add a step in the process to make sure that you're getting best results, because if you don't, something's going to fall through, right?
When I have delegated some things before, I found it really helpful to just do like a look and learn. So I record myself on Loom. And so I don't miss a step when I'm trying to communicate something to someone and they can see it step by step by step. This is what it looks like. This is what these different pieces are. But I also want to talk about tracking because it's not just about tracking for processes. It's important for tracking like what you're doing. Is this thing that you're doing working, or is it just something else that's taking more of your time? Because if you're doing something that's not actually driving customers, you're getting leads from elsewhere. That's where you need to be focusing energy because we all have limited time.
Well, so oftentimes you spend time where you're enjoying it and it may not be really where people are responding. And I think that's kind of a funny thing that you don't always even recognize that until you take a step back. So that's a good point. For sure.
Says no one here who has ever doom scrolled on Facebook or TikTok.
Ever.
Never.
I usually doom scroll for fun and profit though when I do it. So we got a question on syncing Calendly to Google. If y'all want to chat about that, y'all can I think maybe take the how-to of the technical pieces. We can take those offline. It's gonna misbehave. Like I can guarantee, even if we got in here and we screen shared, we'd spend like hours and hours and hours trying to figure out technique. So we can take the tech conversations offline, like the specific implementation pieces and parts. What other questions do you have? Yeah, Google and Calendly also have to be the same email address, and Zoom and everything all has to be hooked onto the same email address. Trying to use multiple email addresses for your stuff is not going to work. So find one core central email address that hooks everything to everything. So whether it's your, what you use for Zapier or Calendly or Google or your email, pick one central email that is everything.
Yeah, on that real quick, I'll say that what I do is I sign in with Google, right? It's not a separate account. It's my Google account that logs me into Calendly and Zoom. And so syncing those three was really seamless. So if you don't have that set up and you're having a lot of issues with it, I would recommend maybe considering doing it all over and doing it that way, because, oh, it's so seamless and easy.
Yeah. Marsha asks a good question. When you're starting your marketing strategy, how do you avoid the flavor of the month, marketing of the month problem?
It's
I would
really
say that's
hard.
not just startups. That's a huge issue. I'm going to say that one of the things I see a lot, as somebody who does a lot of marketing, is there's not just a lot of marketing idea of the month, flavor of the month problems out there, shiny squirrels that are guaranteed to get you results. And you should be doing this. And if you build this blah, 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 blah dollar funnel, it's guaranteed to get you leads. Nothing is guaranteed. Really, one of the hardest things as a business owner is avoiding the shiny squirrels. The shiny object syndrome.
I try to come up with something. What are the non-negotiables? What are the things I have to do every month? Okay, I want to write this many articles. I want to turn each article into this many social posts. And if you systematize it, that seems to be like the word of the day here, but if you systematize it, then you can leave room for like 20% fun ideas. Because if it's like, okay, I do 80% this, or maybe for you, it's 50%. These are the things that I'm doing. And then it leaves room for chasing some of the shiny things, because there are things that happen. There are things that happen in the world. There's things that happen in the news, and you want to be able to test them and play with them or align with them. And Marsha, with what you do, you have so many fun, whimsical creations that you might get a really good idea that's worth pursuing. But if you do your best to not let that take away from the focus of everything else that you're doing, and then if you start to find it working, then you can start to work that idea in more into the mix of the 50 to 80, whatever your percent is of your ongoing marketing activity.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing too is do your own research before you go hopping off on a marketing strategy. And, stick with what you're doing for a good amount of time before you decide it's not working. And, if you're doing something and it's not working perfectly, don't necessarily throw the baby out with the bathwater. One of the things I see a lot of times, and, this is the whole Think and Grow Rich thing, stopping 3 feet from gold. A lot of times I think you've got to know when to give up, but you also have to know when to keep going, and you have to stick with something long enough. So when you're doing the idea of the month for marketing, so I hopped on TikTok for 30 days and I didn't get any sales. Well, then I hopped over to blah, 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 and I didn't get any sales. Do you see the theme, right? You're not sticking with any one thing long enough to actually see the success, for people to actually know who you are, to get the results, to build what you're doing.
To that point, I think committing to like 2 or 3 places that you want to spend significant time, or whatever time you're going to spend like marketing and hanging out, is the best thing you can do for like 3-month stretch to see if there's any real traction there. Limit the Facebook groups you're engaging in, and either ignore or just leave the others for now, and see which ones kind of are the community that you want to hang out in, or whether it's somewhere else. Because I think when you really immerse yourself and show up and provide the value and like engage with other people, Haley's always saying that engage with other people, they'll see you more too. And she's right. And I think all of those things, when you consistently do them, will start to prove what is and isn't working if you give it the time, like you're saying.
Yeah, it can be 3, 6, 9 months. It can take a while.
There's some really good questions in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Isaiah's was, how do I know what the best platform is for entrepreneurs? And if you haven't been following the thread, it's like, it's really where your audience hangs out from my perspective. But he's like, well, I hate TikTok. And I'm like, well, cool. Don't do
TikTok.
If you hate it, it doesn't serve you. Because you'll start to resent it. You'll start to resent turning your podcast into those shorts or whatever it is. If you can hand podcast notes over to someone else, or hand over some of maybe the raw podcast, to someone else. I know Meg is exceptional at turning long form content into like short form blips. And I know there's some AI tools out there that can do that. And then it's not something that you have to do anymore. It's just something that you can sort of automate, for lack of a better word. But yeah, don't do it if you hate it. That sounds awful if you hate it.
Yeah, no, and don't use a platform that you hate using. I mean,
Don't do
one of the
anything.
things that I see
Mhm.
a lot of times is like, oh, I heard such and such a platform was amazing, but I hate using it.
When you hate
Okay, then
doing
it's
something,
not.
it shows too. Like it comes out in what you produce, whether you realize it or not. So
Totally.
Yeah.
I think one of the things
Keisha
that
asked-
we, if I may, there's one of the things that we get kind of hung up on is like a golden technique. Like to get back to the question of, how do you avoid that shiny object, flavor of the month, this platform, that platform? The secret to your success is not going to be in a technique. The secret to your success is going to be in being authentic and putting yourself out there and actually making a connection with your audience. It doesn't matter what platform it is. It doesn't matter what form the communication takes. What matters is what you're communicating, the content, whether people are making that authentic connection with you. That's what really matters, right? So the way that you avoid getting caught up in the flavor of the month is recognize that that particular flavor, whatever it is not the solution to your marketing problem.
You're so right. And I think it's
Well-
also recognizing, like, put yourself in the shoes of the people you're talking to. Like if someone was speaking to you and communicating with you the way you are to the people you're talking to, how would you receive it? And like, if someone comes at you with all this stuff about what they do unsolicited, are you going to find them someone you want to get to know? Or are you going to feel like, who is this stranger that are DMing me out of nowhere or whatever it is? So it's coming up with an authentic strategy that works, but that feels good along the way, and that you too would buy from if it were in reverse. And I think that that's a good gut check. Treat people the way you want to be treated, kind of gut check. And then there's just one other question I want to make sure we get to. Keisha asked, what are your thoughts about hiring, contracting a salesperson or agency? I can just say my personal thing is that goes a little bit, most of the time, at least for most people that I've worked with, initially it goes really against that authenticity piece, because it's very hard to find somebody that's going to do things the way you would feel good about it and bring you the right fit. Now, I think at certain stages of business, it's great and there's a time and a place, but for most solopreneurs and smaller businesses, it's something you have to learn to do yourself in order to build your business the way you want to do it. Ultimately, when you're ready to really scale and kick things off, there are people that do this stuff really well, but by then you'll know your business and your brand so well that you can hire people that would be a good fit and who can also convert. But you have to be really careful, because there's a lot of different techniques out there. Like even just like using certain words or not using certain words to describe what you're doing can make a difference in how people feel about you or hire you or not. Some brands use profanity, some do not. That's one that I always bring up because it's an easy one. It's a very different vibe. And if you have a salesperson that doesn't understand your brand voice and what you're doing, you can really waste a lot of time and money, and you may think you're saving it, but you're not. And I've gone down that rabbit hole with different positions that I've hired over the years. And it's sometimes very hard, depending what you're doing, especially if it's something a little bit innovative that's not cookie cutter, to hire a sales team that's going to be able to serve you well anyway. And a lot of people resist that sales because they feel like it's something they hate doing. But the truth is that you're doing the people that you work with a favor by offering a solution to their problem. And when you start to shift your mindset around sales, it's just having a conversation and taking the relationships that we've been talking about over this hour to the next level to help them. And, you're trying to build a business and you're going to charge people for your services or your product. Those people are doing the same. And when you realize that it's just finding that right give and take relationship, it doesn't feel as hard and it starts to come with greater ease. But it takes that time to invest yourself, which I know is something where we're all talking about systems and delegating and automating, but that's one that I would hold off on doing till much later in business, personally.
But I want to pop one idea in there, and that is just, again, I'm in the same place. I would not hire someone to do my sales, but I do have lots of people who offer referral fees to, let me back that up. I have a lot of people who I have referral arrangements with, who sometimes, if I can refer someone back to them, oh, good, Keisha's back. If I can refer someone back, I am not interested in exchanging any fees, because a lot of times I just want to know that my people are taken care of. But if someone is referring someone to me and I can't refer someone back to them just because I don't usually have that kind of volume or that clients with that particular need, I have offered people a percentage of the sales if they send me someone who kind of as a thank you. Thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for staying top of mind. And that could be an option for you too, Keisha. I think you may have missed the first part of the conversation here when we were answering your question. I saw you coming back in. But an affiliate type relationship could be really beneficial. You're not necessarily hiring someone to do the sales, but you're building your network of people who can refer you people. And I think that's sometimes more effective. And it also feels really authentic, because you can get that, it's like, man, I love this person. You should consider working with them. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump off of that.
Well, I will throw something out there for y'all. When I left corporate in 2013, I started a home care agency, and I'm an engineer with an MBA. Does not exactly scream extrovert. I tried hiring salespeople who had a ton of experience. I wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars hiring salespeople who said that they knew what they were doing, blah, 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 blah. Let me just say that sales is the hardest piece to hire for in a business. And it's not just your brand message. There are so many things that go into training people. I hired trainers for them. I hired trainers for myself. That is where I've actually ended up spending the most money on myself from a coaching and mentoring perspective, is on sales, and not being sleazy and slimy and icky about it. And, you know, it in a lot of ways broke me in my home care agency, because people would tell me that they were doing particular things, or that they were going out and that they were meeting with particular people and all of this stuff. And it was not happening for the most part. And, I had to learn the hard way that, hiring for salespeople can be the hardest thing. And the other thing I saw over and over again in corporate is that, salespeople will promise whatever to get the client pregnant, right? To get the client to sign on the dotted line. And we used to joke about that all the time at EMC and at IBM. And then when my husband was at, Cisco and NetApp and IBM and all these big tech companies, we would joke about the salespeople getting the customer pregnant so that they would pay all of this money. And, they sell the thing before it even exists, before it's even a capability of a massive corporation. And I mean, so to Pamela's point, I would definitely wait until you have a very, very clear offer, that you have nailed everything down to within an inch of its life, and you have very set parameters, very clear training, and that it's a whole process, because it can be a ride. It can be such a ride. And I don't know if y'all have also had experiences, but yeah, that is a heck of an analogy, right?
I'm like crying over here silently.
Laughing so hard. Yeah.
Laughing so hard, I'm crying.
I was recently talking to a salesperson who also works at another major IT corporation. And his comment was, yeah, well, a lot of times we get the client to sign on the dotted line by selective omissions. And, you hear about how people like do sales and stuff. And I'm like, okay, don't want to work at that company either. But, also just be aware of what people are promising. And I mean, I see it all the time in the marketing world, oh, I promise you this funnel that's guaranteed to work for you. And then, somebody ends up hiring me and I go through it and I'm like, and I was telling Mike today, and he was hearing me like ranting through the screen going, this thing could never convert. It will never convert. And this person spent tens of thousands of dollars on this thing that will never convert. And that's what happens in this industry. So just when you talk about salespeople, I get a little twitchy.
I think a lot of times when we're just starting out, especially, and we're struggling to make those sales, we begin to think, well, what if I just have somebody else do this for me? I'm not good at this. This doesn't feel good. I don't like it. I just want to hire somebody else to do it for me. That's a mistake. At least in this one area, that's a mistake. And it's a mistake because no one can fix a broken sales process for you. If you don't, and the reason why is because you're selling you. When you're a solopreneur, you are selling you. This is what's in my heart. Here you go. Do you want it? And if you haven't figured out very clearly what you want, what you're offering, who you're offering it to, and how to connect the dots for them, if you haven't figured that out, I guarantee you no one else is ever going to figure that out for you. Never in a million years. And that's why, like poor Haley, spent all this money trying to hire people to do that, and it didn't work because, and even when you've got it all nailed down, that's the one thing where you can't, like in a marriage, you can't hire somebody to talk to your spouse for you. Am I right? Like, it's not going to work. You can't hire somebody to go, find a wife or a husband for you. And then here's your perfect, it doesn't work.
All of these analogies today, but
So much.
All of these wonderful analogies, right?
Well, I also think there's a lot of value even, in the sales process of listening to like what people are saying, like to their objections, their questions, their concerns. It helps you deliver better. It helps you close more sales more easily in the future. So while it may seem like a good investment to outsource it, sometimes even though it may be more painful or something you like doing less, there's still a lot of value in doing it yourself for a while.
Yeah. If you're doing a service,
Sorry.
if you're a coach or a consultant, otherwise you may just have to have somebody who answers your phone, like you're a plumber or a builder or whatever, but you still are going to have to talk to people.
Well, that's actually a good point. Like, I don't think I think if you're going to hire sales, it's good to have somebody be an intermediary, like a step in the process, but you should still be a part of the process. And that works well, whether it's bringing you the leads or having that initial call to vet, are they really interested? Are they ready for you? That's different. But I'm talking about closing here.
Like prospecting versus closing,
That's
I
right.
think is what you're talking about. And sometimes it can help to get the prospects. But again, if you don't have your offer, your audience market fit, your offer audience fit dialed in, it's going to be really hard for someone to find a perfect fit prospect. And it's the difference between getting 300 leads might sound amazing, but if you got 5 who are hot to trot, ready to go, that's almost less overwhelming and easier. And the only way to do that is to really have that messaging dialed in. And to Pam and Mike's point, the process.
Well, it's also knowing what you really need. So it may sound good to have 100 people that want to work with you, but you may only really need 5 to make a huge difference in your life to achieve that income that you want in a year. That's going to give you the time and location freedom, if that's your goal. I'm all about remote work, so that's where I go with it. But whatever your goal is. And so I think being mindful of what is going to be that first goal to help you live a better quality of life. And then anything then you take that next step. And it's much easier when you put things in micro bites to achieve that first step. And then, maybe that'll be good enough. Maybe you'll want to keep going. But I think keeping things in more manageable chunks is going to help you take the consistent action that we've talked about. And one of the things that I think is really cool about the conversation today, and I know they led with this in the intro, but I'm going to circle it back since I think it's important to remind everyone, is that all of these things are interrelated. Your systems, your marketing, your copy, your strategy, it's all interrelated. And so when you think about hiring someone to do a website or write copy for you or to be a coach, you always want to think about what your end goal is and how is this person going to help you, because you're going to likely need multiple services at different points and multiple approaches to things. But it's figuring out what's the right thing for now that's going to get me to that next step so that you can tie it all together, because rarely will you make one hire that's going to do all the things that you need in your business or work on one part of your business, because it is all interconnected.
That's a really, really good point. And I think getting clear on your why am I doing this? and what do I hope to accomplish? Like, what is that end result? Because if you can communicate that, first of all, the person you're hiring should be asking questions like that. But second of all, if you can communicate that, then you can get a sense of how they think and how they're going to tackle it. Because I think if you can understand how they think, they can start to understand how you think. It's this weird cycle, but and then you can build a better connection, because if you can't communicate what you're trying to do, it's very, very hard for them to chase that.
And even if you don't know what you're trying to do, if you at least know what you're trying to achieve, like what does your life look like when you achieve whatever fill in the blank is, that can help you get there. And so I always start with, what's the income that you'd love to earn in the next year? How much time do you want to work to get there? And then what are the things you like to do? And you take it from there.
One thing I do want to point out here for Marcia's question. One of the things I see a lot online, though, is here's how to beat the system tips. You know, they're juicy, they're super cool, they're blah, blah, blah. This is going to get you around all the SEO stuff. This is going to beat the Facebook algorithm. This is going to do blah, blah, blah. Almost anything that you think is going to abuse the algorithm or sneak past it so they don't notice it in some way, or black hat techniques. Like, I'll give you the perfect example. People started putting a link in the first message of a post. I did that this past week as a test, just to see how bad Facebook throttles it. I've had 12 million views on my profile this month. Do you want to guess how many views I got on that particular post?
I'm guessing 0.
One.
Interesting.
And it was
One
probably
view on
right?
that post. And it was probably me.
You know what?
And if anybody says that to you, run. I mean, it's just one example.
I'd love each of the experts' take on this question if we have time for this last one. I don't know how long we have, but how do you know who to trust in terms of expertise? Because that's one we've been talking about a lot. Like, what makes you feel like someone's truly an expert? Because a lot of people self-proclaim and then they tell you, and many have told me, put that link in the comments. And you don't know, you're just saying, oh, that sounds good, and you go and follow through. So how do you know who really is the trusted expert when you're looking for people? Other experts, please.
That's such a good question.
Yeah,
Recommendations, education, background,
For me,
experience, and
I think
interviewing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
And
you.
interviewing.
I think for me, it is the proof is in the pudding a lot of the time. A lot of people can talk a big game, particularly in the digital marketing world. A lot of people know just the right things to say. And I don't want to be lumped in with that snake oil, first of all. But secondly, look at their past work. Find out how they'd approach the project. Find out what other people are saying. Get recommendations. LinkedIn is a really good source. They should also probably be posting it on their website. Not everyone does, so that's not a reason to not believe it. But especially if you can look at some of these sites where they can't write their own, like LinkedIn, like Google, like Facebook, because it's really, really telling to see what other people have to say about them.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get, for lack of a better word, suckered by somebody who really knows how to manipulate your emotions in a sales call. I think that's the number one thing you need to educate yourself about and understand how it works so that it's not quite as effective on you, so that you can notice when it's being done to you, because it'd be really easy for somebody to get you on a call and just get your emotions in such a state that you're ready to buy just like that. I mean, I don't know who all has, I know I have, who all has had training in how to do that. I've had training in how to do that. And, I don't like doing it. It feels icky, right? Because it's just manipulative. And if you ask me, like, that's the number one thing to be concerned about and to understand, because that's where people who don't really know, and it's so easy to think that they know what they're doing when in reality, all they really know about is how to manipulate your emotions into being in a psychological emotional state where you're really ready to buy.
Totally
I
agree.
agree.
I think if they're pushing you to buy right now, like push, and it's not just here's what we can do. I think it's not necessarily a red flag, but it's definitely a heck of a yellow flag. I would rather people be really good about feel really good about their choice and really want to work with me, not just because I put pressure on them.
For that very reason, I myself went to a 2-part sales process. It's 2 calls. I'm going to have the first call where I'm going to find out what you need, figure it out, understand you, understand your business. And I do not let people buy on that call. I have a second call and there's a couple of days in between. Why? To let those emotions kind of, come down a little bit and give them an opportunity to really get out of the situation and think about it. Because I mean, how many of us have bought something and then the next day you're like, dang, why did I do that? Just having a little time to think about it some more.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I want to give people that. I don't want
Yeah.
people to purchase from me out of just because of they were in the right emotional place to buy, and it really didn't matter that it was me on the other end of the transaction. They were just in the place to buy whatever from whoever. And I don't want people to buy from me for that reason, because I guarantee you it's not going to get them the best results in the end. It's not going to get you the best results in the end. It's not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it is 3:17, and so we've gone over just a little bit. And I know that some of us are running a little bit more on a timetable. I want to say thank you to everybody who has come. Thank you to our panel experts for being here. I hope that y'all have gotten something here. We're going to start with these questions here that y'all have put in at the end, at the beginning, the next time we do this, and we will let y'all know when it is scheduled. I have the recording. It will come out to y'all after we get it processed and uploaded to YouTube. So thank you so much for being here, everybody.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Have a great day.
Oh, yeah. Have an awesome